Welcome, one and all. This is the Peace Dealer, and we are in another episode of Peace Talk, where I invite really awesome slash amazing spiritualists or just people walking their path to not only, tell you a bit about themselves, but to drop some dope knowledge. And this episode, we have Leia on deck. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm both happy and honored that we have you on the show and on the team. So, for those who aren't aware, if you haven't seen Leia's videos already, she's just joined our Peace Dealer channel. And I mean, she's been hitting us with super awesome content. So, I want to publicly thank you for that.
I want to thank you for giving me the chance to be on your team and do these videos. Thank you. I'm so grateful.
Appreciate that. So, where are you based at? Where are you?
I'm in Snoqualmie, Washington, in the mountains right now. I live up in the mountains.
Sweet. Okay. So how do you feel the difference of like the vibrations up there as opposed to maybe like in the city? If
Yeah,
or
the energy is totally different out here. It's a great place to create and do work and stay home and focus. It's less distracting, but I'm still close enough to the city to do things. So it's perfect.
oh, sweet.
Yeah, it's peaceful out here.
Does it rain out over there a lot?
It does rain a lot in the winter, but it's very mild. It's not, we don't get a whole lot of snow, which is good.
Oh, okay. So
But there's lots of star and planet gazing out here because you're out of the city. If you're really
nah.
interested in looking at the constellations and planets, it's a good place to really look. And sometimes we can see the northern lights out here too, so that's nice. For me as an astrologer, I like to stargaze.
No, that's really awesome. I definitely have to go out there now because I've been. It's it, just to reiterate, it's near Seattle or in
Yes,
Seattle.
yeah, it's close to Seattle.
Close to Seattle. Awesome. All right. Well, other than that, for those who might be interested, what is your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign?
I am Aquarius sun, Sagittarius rising, and I have a Pisces moon.
Oh, okay. So we got both of those mutable energies working there. That's really awesome. How did you feel about the Saturn transit that just kind of occurred?
It's creating a lot of shifts and it's changing structures. A lot's going on with Saturn because it's going to be leaving Sagittarius and going into Capricorn. So we've got a lot ahead of us when it comes to Saturn.
Yeah, I underestimated how great it is at timing events and being responsible for almost everything that occurs.
Yeah, no, is serious business.
Is your rising sign like near the beginning of Sagittarius or more near the end?
It's 19 degrees, but I have Saturn in Capricorn, so it's close to my ascendant. It's in my first house. So I do feel Saturn transits heavily, especially these days.
And the Saturn return will be
Yep,
not quick. That's what it do.
starting soon.
That I think one thing that really wows me is how it's going to like dance in with the sun and then move in and start that season together. It's just so, and then Venus will come through and it's just so symbolic.
All those planets are going to be working together. And because they're all conjunct, when you have other planets conjunct that Saturn, it brings a little bit of those planetary energies along with it. And you've got a conjunction like that.
Yeah. What do you feel about the cycle that will birth? Considering the last time Venus was on Saturn, it was like in the middle of Sagittarius on the 30th of October, 2016. So between then till now we're gonna have it with the sun and of course Venus. What do you feel about what kind of cycle we're stepping in with that? And then that's like right on your first house. So how do you feel that'll
I feel
affect
like when Saturn and Venus conjoin, it's asking us to kind of restructure and change how we relate to other people because Venus is not just about romance or love relationships. It can also be how you relate and express yourself with other people to some extent. So it will affect us on, it'll affect everybody, but then it'll affect people on more personal levels too. The transit will affect us on a world level, but it'll also affect our personal lives quite a bit, especially when people have their ascendant or their sun or their moon sign in those planets, if that, because in that placement will really be affecting them.
Yeah. Oh my.
But for you, you're a Gemini, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
at some point, these planets were opposing your sun.
Yes. That was a very harsh opposition. While Jupiter was squaring at Virgo at one point, and then Neptune has been squaring. So
Oh yeah.
I've literally been like, part of me has been delusional in some kind of like fish reality.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
But I
It's,
think this month is going to be, this December is going to be crazy.
I truly, authentically believe that with every fiber of my being.
I
And
know it. It's going to be really crazy. A lot of secrets are going to be unveiled.
it's like they're already being revealed. It's like they're already coming out because there's so much that's about to be pushed out. And I love the work you've already done. If you don't even mind speaking on that, like what do you personally feel about what the people you've brought up and how this trend may continue?
There's so much going on astrologically, especially with Jupiter going into Scorpio, that's going to reveal a lot of the dark undercurrents that have been secret for so long, and people are not going to be able to get away with what they've been doing. A new system has to be created because Saturn, it also governs systems and structures and authority figures, and we're seeing a lot of people in power crumbling, like Weinstein, the sex predators in Hollywood, even people in our political office. We're going to see a lot more secrets be revealed. And I really look at planet cycles personally as an astrologer. I really look at synodic astrology cycles. That's what I really specialize in.
Phonetic?
Synodic.
Synodic. Okay.
Synodic, like Venus retrograde, Mars retrograde cycles,
Mm.
cycles. I study them and I
That's,
look for the patterns.
some of those patterns are frightening, especially this trend I noticed how every time the sun will shift, the moon is already shifting into another zodiac sign, kind of like dancing with it. But correct me if I'm wrong. Does Venus go retrograde 2018 and Mars, or is that just over the next?
So Venus will be going retrograde on October 4th of 2018, and it will be going retrograde in Scorpio. And the last time that Venus went retrograde in Scorpio was in fall of 2010, because Venus goes retrograde every 8 years per sign.
Every 8 years.
For
Oh,
a zodiac sign, but it happens every year and a half or so. It just depends. Every year is a little different depending upon the timing, but Venus retrogrades happen relatively frequently, but they happen in each sign every 8 years, and it takes 8 years for that Venus cycle to complete. So,
wow. Mars a lot longer for sure, but damn, that's really interesting. Especially given like the structural changes Saturn and Capricorn's ready to move forward with. But yeah, I really do appreciate and enjoy the Pisces moon, the Pisces moon Aquarius sun combination, or the representative vibration. It's so serene. There's this like peace that supplements the knowledge you express.
thank you.
I see both of those energies as like ascended master energies.
Oh, thanks. That's really cool.
It's pretty interesting. And how would you, so that's Neptune transiting your moon and Saturn getting ready to move from your, or really move through your rising.
Well, my Neptune is on my ascendant in my natal chart. So I have a
Oh,
moon and a Neptune conjunct my ascendant, so that can give somebody a really Piscean element, because your ascendant's how you come off to people.
yeah, okay.
So that would maybe explain why you picked up on that.
That's interesting. I'm so personally excited for Pluto and Aquarius. I feel like it's going to be the mecca for air signs.
Technology is going to get revolutionized.
That's the culprit. So Uranus and Taurus is probably sowing the seeds then, but or I guess getting the next wave of products ready. But I truly look forward to that. Even though I feel it'll be intense revolution, it's could be my curiosity, but it's definitely necessary.
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens on a humanitarian level and how it really affects the people. When
Yeah,
Pluto goes into Aquarius, that will be very interesting because I feel like these Pluto transits really affect people on a world level. They really can.
yeah, no, totally.
It's so interesting. And we're going to be alive to see it,
Yeah.
probably. So that's awesome.
Should we make it through Pluto Capricorn?
I'm ready for Pluto to leave Capricorn already.
Oh yeah. Um, in that regard, what really got you inspired to walk this path? Were you always knowledgeable or into astrology, and then especially the specialization that you take part of? What really got you on your destiny?
So when I was 7 years old, my mother took me for an astrology reading to have my chart done. And that was the day that I met who became my first teacher. And it wasn't until I was in about the seventh or eighth grade, I started really going on Astro.com and reading books and reading Robert Hand and reading Dane Rudhyar. And I started taking classes with this lady one on one. And I would do things at her house to help her out. And we would trade. And I would go every week for classes with her for about 5 years, starting in middle school through high school. And she was an amazing, incredible teacher, an amazing human being. It was very interesting. She couldn't walk, but she was so spiritual and into astrology. And she was the strongest person I ever knew. She was a Scorpio with an Aries rising, and she taught me so much. And that's how I really got into astrology. And she never felt sorry for herself. And she used astrology to heal people and help them better understand themselves and use it as a tool for more awareness as to how to work with yourself. And she taught me for a couple of years. And then I just kept studying. And I just kept giving people free readings. The first 5 years I was studying, I just kept telling people, hey, I want to learn. I'm going to give you free readings. And they were like, sure. And that's how I practiced for several years. And then about, I'd say 8, 9 years ago, I started, charging for readings and taking it more seriously and stepping it up a notch. And, I would go to astrology conferences and the Venus retrograde synodic cycle, I dated someone who was an astrologer and they told me about that and they told me to start really researching it. And they said the best way to really learn astrology synodic cycles is to study history and study celebrities because their life is public knowledge. All those dates are in file. So you can kind of research and and do chronological archives of that and study it. And that's how I really studied astrology.
I get chills when I like how you said it's like public knowledge because
it's public knowledge. Most people are private. They don't want to tell you all the major dates and events of their life, and most people don't keep track of it unless you're journaling. But a journal is the best tool you can use for tracking your planet cycles in your life.
When I did the composite webinar and I was like studying up notes, I noticed that Kim Kardashian and Kanye West on their marriage date, their Juno was being aspected by the North Node.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but then I had to think, do you think they went to an astrologer to plan it or was it just organic?
I wouldn't be surprised if they consulted an astrologer. In some other spiritual communities, there's been talk that the Kardashians are quite interested in rituals and other forms of spirituality. It's been rumored that they go to psychics and readers. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they did get consulted on that.
Interesting.
I think they're open-minded about these things. I don't know for sure, but from what I gather, it seems that way.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
No.
But still, I wouldn't be surprised if it was organic because you're 100% right. Like, I think one of the you're 100% right about like case studying celebrities. It's one of the most fun thing to do because it helps prove so much. Well, I mean, not even about proving, just showing so much. And I feel like that'll be uh, maybe with the Pluto shift, if not now, and one of the coolest things that we get to do with this, as far as implementing legitimate case studies to make real research and finally like legitimize this craft.
You know, apart from celebrities, if you study crime patterns and you look at missing persons files, all those dates are public records. So if you really want to research, if you want to do research into victim crime perpetrator transits or dynamics in the chart, there's thousands of databases with people's birth dates on it. And I've studied that. And I've noticed trends of people who tend to be abducted or missing. And I know that's a little morbid, but if you really want to study the transits of crime, very interesting. All that's public knowledge too.
That is so genius. And right off the bat, is Pluto as much of a culprit as it would seem, or is Mars and Saturn
A big
more?
trend I notice of women who go missing or men is they have Pluto T squares with their sun, and they might have Pluto square the moon, they might have Mars opposite Pluto, or they might have some Pluto Jupiter T squares in their charts.
Oh
They
wow,
might have major Pluto T squares, or maybe they've got a Venus Pluto transit in their chart. That's a big thing I've noticed. Or Moon Pluto.
Moon
And
Pluto.
majority of them have Venus retrograde.
Okay,
I've studied over 200 charts of people who I looked at all of them and I looked for a common pattern. And most of them had Venus retrograde or major Pluto transits in their chart.
that's
And it's
very
very fascinating. They all had very similar trends. And another thing you can do, you can study ancestral astrology patterns with your own family. You can get your family tree, find their birthdays, look at all the transits and see if you inherited any transits. And then
that's
you can look at family structures and patterns and family of origin issues that have carried on, and you can see that in the transit sometimes. But it takes a little bit of detective work and digging to do that.
yeah. That's very awesome too. Just finding out I mean, it could be hard for older generations that don't have the time of birth, but still,
Right.
that wind block I had, like, my grandma didn't even know like when she was born. At some sense, she's kind of my other grandma, but regardless, seeing those trends are just so like wild.
Wild.
Because it'll be so in your face. It's like, wow, I can't believe I didn't notice. For example, my mom having the same sun and moon as me and opposite nodes. It's like, wow, it's pretty.
That's so karmic.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. And then of course, I think what's really cool are the multi-composite charts that could like take more than two charts and fuse them together. So
Oh yeah, you can look at all the wheels.
yeah, it's really great. Um, Outside of it's really fascinating, and that's what I really appreciate about speaking to or engaging with the Aquarius vibration. I personally believe that it astrology is Aquarius. I mean, it implements all the signs, but like it's like I can see why it will rule that. And really finding a great practical application for all this astral energy is a great blessing, obviously, but it's really great to experience and see. So I do thank you again for sharing your gifts and talents, because when I do think of the new age of Aquarius, it's really great to see you like personifying this and living this through and sharing this.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, so normally this is a part where we play like a simple game,
Okay.
but before we do so, Um, One thing I want to ask is, with a whole lot of once again, things getting exposed and people, certain things just kind of being revealed, what do you feel? Let me be careful how I word this, but there's this kind of subtle sense in the air that I think everyone can kind of sense, but they can't put into words. What do you feel might really be uh, the next wave of revelation? And I apologize, I didn't really ask that right. Also, at the same time, how do you feel this is connected with the impending impeachment that they may be trying to do? And what do you feel about the impeachment process?
I feel that a lot of more scandals are going to come out of the woodwork. More secrets will be revealed, and I think it's going to be linked with other people besides the president. It's going to be greater than that. It's going to be an intricate spider web with numerous facets that are going to come out.
That's so true.
That's what I really think, and I really think the big revelation is going to be more about what these people do in their spare time that's wrong. I think the morality of what our politicians are doing is going to come out in regards to how they're treating women or children or what they're doing behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Some things that people might have thought were conspiracies in the past may actually come out to be revealed as true. Things that we never believed to be true beyond our wildest dreams may be revealed. And I really think that this is going to happen because Mercury retrograde is stationing on the day of a full moon. And there's a Neptune T-square that day. And Neptune's the apex point of that T-square between the sun and the moon. So I really think secrets are going to be revealed. And
yeah.
the fact that it's happening the day that Mercury's stationing in retrograde kind of gives us a foreshadow of what's to come.
At 29
At
degrees,
29 degrees, that critical degree.
which is just like Saturn's next to it. And it's trining Uranus, so it's like whatever is coming out, there must have been so much preparation
Oh,
for.
yeah. A lot is going to come out, and there's more to come. And I
And
really, yeah, sorry.
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I do think that these people will pay a price and that karma will get them.
Hmm.
There's going to be karmic results to this. Like, they're not going to be able to get away with it as much as they used to, because in the past, people in power always seem to get away with doing these terrible things. And there's no consequences for their action. But Saturn's about consequence. And Saturn is conjuncting that Mercury retrograde that day that it stations.
That's very true. Oh my gosh, it's like I I'm supposed to be the analytical words man, but I can't help but just feel instead of just say right now. Must be a transit, but I do want to touch more on retrogrades.
Okay.
And I'm really glad and grateful you've kind of reminded and brought awareness to how important it is to track retrogrades, especially in cycles. So, what do you feel are the significance of retrogrades in the natal versus the transit, even if they're similar?
Transiting Mercury retrograde affects everyone to some degree, but how it affects someone who has a natal retrograde versus someone who doesn't have a natal retrograde is different. People that have natal planets retrograde, sometimes they can really thrive when the transiting planet is retrograde. Like, say, for example, someone's got Mercury retrograde and transiting Mercury's going retrograde. I've noticed a lot of these people thrive and do really well, and they feel like they're really on their game. Whereas the rest of us that don't have that are kind of like, oh, we gotta fix this and that, and you have all these snafus that happen. But retrogrades are really a time for recharging and rebooting. It's almost like a planetary reboot, but it affects us in all areas of our life depending upon where that retrograde is falling. Like the Mercury retrograde is asking us to redo, revise, re-envision. Think of the word re. That's the main thing for retrograde. It's the time to redo things and tie up old loose ends. It's not great for starting new projects during a retrograde cycle. It's great for handling old situations that need tending to during retrogrades. Like even with Venus retrograde, not necessarily a good time to start a new relationship or get married during that time, but it's a good time to deal with past lovers or past friends that you have unfinished business to deal with. There's certain ways to utilize that energy really well. But again, that's not, I don't want to generalize and say this is the case for everyone. It depends upon their chart and if they have that planet natally retrograde or not.
Yeah.
It really depends. I can't say it's a one size fits all for everyone, but it really does it changes, it shifts everything. I think retrogrades kind of shake things up and ask you to kind of transform and change and get ready for a new cycle.
No, definitely. And I'm not, it's kind of fascinating how you could have certain staple understandings of themes like this, and then simultaneously they can apply in all sorts of ways with special exceptions, like a planet that's in fall or supposed to be bad or malefic could be the best part of your chart, and
Absolutely.
it just kind of reiterates how everyone's as unique as a snowflake, and or there's never the same one.
Sometimes with crime patterns, when Venus goes retrograde, you might notice that male perpetrators get caught more during Venus retrograde because Venus is naturally ruled by a feminine planet in rulership. But you might notice that a lot of things get revealed during Venus retrogrades in relation to crimes on women. I've noticed that. I've studied that crime pattern. And I've noticed that happens. You really hear wild stories happening when Venus goes retrograde in relation to crime.
That's just fascinating. I can't ever stop remarking on how fascinating it is to case study, and it other than forensic astrology, medical astrology, it's making a very exciting comeback, and also economic astrology, which would probably be interesting to study the behavior patterns. But what do you feel I mean, okay, it's totally possible, but do you feel I think this is what I was trying to say before, but I couldn't say it in words. Like, what do you feel is what is the next modality? What is this next hyper conscious understanding of, I guess, complex patterning and personality profile, like that may one day overtake astrology? I know there's human design and galactic code coming out, but I've noticed everything kind of implements astrology. Is that even possible? No, see, it's totally possible, but what do you, on top of that, once again, what do you feel might be even the next Facebook? Because it's
the next phase of astrology, like the next big trend, you mean?
Yeah, like the next big system, and then also what's the next craze, right? What do you think will beat Facebook? Which of course we haven't seen it yet, so it's hard to say. But there's a certain feel, I guess, to.
I wouldn't be surprised if people start using astrology more to deal with their family of origin issues, especially during their Saturn return. They may be really drawn to this. You may really see people using astrology in congruence with psychotherapy.
Yeah,
People are going to try to understand themselves on a more archetypal level using the asteroids and the planets more, I think. I think that astrology is continuing to evolve with how it's used. It's going to keep changing, and people are just getting more and more interested in it. And it seems like even people that aren't astrologers, they're even getting interested in things like crystals and astrology, and people's minds are opening up. They're seeking answers because they're realizing the old system isn't working so well for them.
Amen.
And people are getting more disillusioned with the way things used to be because it's not working very well anymore. People are getting fed up.
I think. No, yeah, totally. And it's kind of interesting to see how one can make that 180, especially experiencing it too. It's also it's actually also interesting how when you speak of the evolution of astrology, there seems to be a really synonymous embracing of not archetypalizing yourself by just your zodiac sign, and embracing all the zodiac makeup in your consciousness. So you're not just you're not just a Gemini or Aquarius. You know,
Right.
you embrace like all parts of your chart and open up to, you know, I mean, it could kind of change how people look at the sun sign horoscope, which I feel still has its place. But it's really nice to see people kind of evolving past that and, you know, embracing the wholeness of this craft.
Oh yeah, it's so much more than just your sun sign. There's so many elements involved in a person's chart. And there's such a deeper picture. And I think people are understanding that more and getting curious and waking up. I'm noticing that especially with people with who have that cluster of planets in the Capricorn planets that were born in the late 80s to the early 90s, they seem to really be getting interested in astrology, especially.
To revisit once again, it's really a blessing that you're in such a nice area. One thing about this awakening, or I hate it, well, let me not say awakening, but one thing about this process of expanding awareness is I personally, as well as many others, like in similar situations, becoming more aware of vibrations and how it's just so paramount to create a sacred space and like clear your energy. I was gonna really, I wanted to see, I want to know your views on how to deal with psychic attack and not even so much
Yeah, that's something I work on every day because I have a Pisces moon and I
like,
have
yeah.
on my ascendant. So I have to make energy boundaries every day, all the time.
So you definitely feel the energies.
I'm very open. I'm almost so open that it's like a full-time job for me to keep stuff out.
That's
When,
interesting.
when you're that open, there's various ways that I protect myself from energy attacks or to keep my home in good energy flow and good space. The main thing is having too much stuff around the house creates stagnant energy because you've got all that clutter. It's not good to have too much clutter around. Because when you remove things and you get rid of stuff, it makes space for new things to come in. Another thing I do is I grid my home with crystals, like shungite, black tourmaline, smoky quartz. I put them in corners of the house and I grid the crystals in strategic areas. You know, of course, saging the house and using Palo Santo is another good way to kind of cleanse the area. And of course, sea salt. And you can even take spiritual baths to kind of cleanse all the energy off your auras that's stuck on your body. That's another thing you can do. I also wear carnelian and black tourmaline on my hand all the time.
You don't have to. You could take a bath or just okay, yeah, a bath. So and that's like just like purifying the water you use too, right? And putting
You add salt to the water and different herbs that have very cleansing properties to them that are very detoxifying, and that kind of gets it all off, and you feel different after you take a salt bath. You just feel cleaner and just like lighter. You'll know it works if you feel lighter.
nice.
But salt is very cleansing for negative energy,
That's beautiful.
especially if you've got water modalities in your chart. I think it's really essential to do
Yeah,
that because you're really working with that when you do that.
it's really essential. I agree. Especially I'll speak in the case of progression charts too. I didn't want to believe it, but it really kind of, well, let's not say force, but you definitely do have to go through the lessons, right?
Yes,
So
you do. Absolutely.
cancer has taught me the importance and value of cleansing before anything else.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely important. Um, so all right, let's move on to this game now. Oh, wait. Actually, I want to expand on that though.
Okay, sure.
Thank you so much for speaking on like the limpiezas and the cleansings because it's always valuable to know that kind of energy. So just to expand this further, you know, I really do believe there are higher beings, right? Higher archetypes, maybe in
Mhm.
the form of our collective beliefs or however they take shape. And just like we have positive ones, we do have negative ones, and they have their own intent they express that could influence us. So, what is a good way to identify when your belief systems are being hijacked, and how do you know what's a good way to develop discernment when you're dealing with these
Okay, let me try to clarify. Are you asking me like what are good ways to discern when you're being psychically attacked? Or are you asking more about shadow side versus wait, okay, so you want me to explain?
No, you're right. The what I'm really trying to say is, how can you discern against beings? Like, let's just say you had an encounter with a higher vibrational
Oh,
being.
like how to know when you're dealing with like an entity or a higher being.
Yeah, like let's say the higher being presented itself as it was like positive. What are good ways to discern that it really is positive and it's not like.
So you want me to tell you how are there ways to really know if you're dealing with a higher being or an entity? Like what are the signs to look out for?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sure, I can talk about that.
That's a great, yeah.
Like there are different kinds of entities out there. There's negative ones, and then there's harmless ones that are just earthbound, that are stuck. They haven't crossed over. Maybe sometimes when people pass on, they don't know that they've died. They might not know that they died. Maybe they died in their sleep and they're stuck and they haven't crossed over. So there's different kinds of spirits, and some are malevolent and some are harmless. And ways to know the differences, like, things might happen in your house with your technology, for example. You might notice weird things with your technology being turned on, glitches. You might notice things out of the corner of your eye and you turn around and it's gone. Or if you've got a lot of mirrors in your house, you might notice something in the corner of your eye in the mirror. Entities use mirrors as like portals. Mirrors can be like portals. So if you don't want entities in your house, I'd be careful buying antique mirrors or older mirrors and having those in your home, or at least sage them and cleanse them before bringing them into your home. Another way people can really notice if they're under spiritual attack or if an entity is around is when you're sleeping. A lot of times when you're sleeping, your guard is down lower. You're in a different state of consciousness. And that's when a lot of people are more receptive and they're more open to these spiritual forces because their ego isn't as activated because they're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
They're just at a different level. And when you're in that state, you can really feel it. And they can communicate with you through dream state. You may even physically feel it in your body. Some people experience sleep paralysis when they're under spiritual attack, where you can't move your arms, your legs, and you're having a really crazy dream and you wake up and you see something hovering over you. That can be a form of spiritual attack.
Yeah.
But there's all sorts of ways to deal with that. Doing these prayers called liftings, or doing cleansings in your house, gridding your house, and just getting that energy, moving it out. But I guess the main thing is to really visualize a place for that energy to go, because it's one thing to kind of work with it, but you have to know where to send it and what to do with it. You have to do all the steps or it's not going to go away.
Yeah, that's very true.
But really seeing things out of the corner of your eye, or if you really feel like you're being watched and you've got a really bad feeling in your gut, that's when you know you might be dealing with a spirit. Because a lot of times you feel like you're being watched and then you don't see anything there. But you really feel like they're watching you to the point they're like burning holes in the back of your head. That's when you know you're dealing with the spirit, because it's a very different kind of energy and you know it, feel it in your body.
I'm so glad you said that. Like, I was, as you were saying it was just like check, 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 and I didn't realize I've been dealing with spirit too, and I'm pretty sure everyone who's been watching this right now. But even the corner of your eye thing, that one definitely gets me.
Yeah. Or your animals might be acting strange in your house. If you've got cats or dogs or pets, you might notice that they're acting really odd. They might be howling or barking or crying at an area and there's nothing there, but they are like fixated on it for hours. That can be a sign. Your animals are acting up.
Yeah.
The animals are very sensitive to different vibrations and different energies.
And then a higher being would be more of an etheric presence, or is there ways to tell a difference, or are they just certain facets of each other?
I think how to tell the difference between, I think a darker being, you're going to feel a really bad feeling in your stomach. You're just going to have a really bad gut reaction to it, and you might feel fear. If it's a harmless entity, they're not going to really, they're probably not going to linger around as long because they're not looking to attack you. I mean, you have to really trust your gut reaction. And like darker entities, like for example, let's just say a demonic entity, for example. A lot of times, like I'll say for one example, this one family, they were having scorch marks in their wall, like slashed burn marks were appearing around their house. And when you see something like that, then you know it's something dark. And they had to have a spiritual practitioner and a priest come and work on the house to get it out. And it took a lot of work and they got it out. Now that's just one example of someone I knew that had a really dark entity in their home. You know, and the other side is you might see scratches on your arms. A dark entity is going to attack.
Yeah.
A lighter entity, you're not going to have symptoms of like that. But then there's also poltergeist energy too. And that's very playful and mischievous, but it can also be a little malevolent too. It's like the trickster.
A trickster. Okay. So it just depends on someone.
I've never experienced one myself, but I've known people who've talked about it.
Okay.
I've never experienced a poltergeist, but I've heard stories from different people who saw crazy things happening.
I feel like it really depends on once again, like the energy. And it's interesting. I only noticed recently mild, mischievous spirit behavior when I have to do readings for Aquarius women especially, or Scorpio. I think because of the vibration, it opens up. Like for Aquarius women, it's malevolent to where the recordings will get distorted. I'll try, the reading will be cool. Once I say something, it's like, or if I'm doing a reading with someone that has 12th house energy, that hasn't been so much of an issue now. And thankfully, I've definitely strengthened. It's interesting. I thought the internet was the problem, so I just strengthened the connection, but it even got worse. So, yeah, but
weird that it's manifesting to attack something like technology, which is Aquarius mood.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Wow.
And but it's interesting because the very few Aquariuses that wouldn't get interfered would have like Pisces moons. Or like, so I didn't realize how much that kind of like protects from that, but this is still fascinating. What do you think's the ratio? I'm sure that's not necessarily as easy to tell, but are there a lot of spirits that roam around in this world, or is it just a minimum? Is it not that much?
I've heard different theories about this. My one teacher, she's a medium and she specializes in crossing over spirits who've been stuck. And she explained that, with the opiate crisis getting so bad, with so many overdoses happening, she's saying you're going to see a lot more spirits that are stuck in the bardo or earthbound, because when people OD, a lot of times they don't know they're dead. Because of the way they die. If someone dies in a very strange way, or they die in their sleep, or they just nod off and go to sleep, they don't know. A lot of times people don't know they've passed on and they're stuck. Now, her theory is that because we're seeing so many changes with this, being such a crisis, that there's going to be a lot of people stuck. A lot more people stuck because of that need to be crossed over.
Yeah. That's honestly one of my hugest passions. Like I love acting and being a poet, but one thing that I would do every day that if I didn't have to get paid was to like be an exorcist or cleanse homes and work with these spirits.
You want to help people cross over and find peace?
Yeah, I think it's because of my Uranus and Neptune in the 8th.
Oh, right, of course.
Venus is in the 12th too, so it could be that chime, but just
12th and 8th house energy is really activated in here, it sounds like.
So like I'll sense it, but then I don't always see it. I'm still learning how to see it. And I don't know, I feel like Ichigo from Bleach sometimes, but yeah, so very I feel like this feeling is more, I'm a Capricorn moon too, so I feel weird talking about feelings because I usually want to be more analytical, but it's a new awareness. I feel like I'm not the only one who's gonna kind of like open this up, obviously, right? But it'll be interesting to see this in people's vocabularies as to where before it was so taboo or just kind of, weird to speak of. But
Oh,
anyway.
it's definitely changing. Even 20 years ago, you wouldn't talk about this with somebody, or they would think you're crazy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
minds are opening up. I think people are realizing there's more mystery to this universe than we realize.
True that.
Yeah.
True that.
Amazing.
All right. So let's play the questions game.
Okay.
We'll take turn asking each other questions.
Okay.
In 3 rounds. So you'll start. You can ask me a question, I'll answer, and then I'll ask you a question, you answer, and then we'll go 2 more rounds.
Okay. So, what caused you to become so interested in astrology? How did you get on your path?
Thank you. So it wasn't until recently that I started to embrace how powerful an influence fate and karma are. I have all my life been such a staunch believer in free will, and I still am. I still believe that free will is something that is being fought over for humanity, and it's something we can align with our personal destiny, but it's one of the last things we really have to make us who we are, which is dramatic to say, but I say that because I truly believe now. I never really, I mean, I got interested in astrology because, like you, I had my chart read. It happened time to me right on the Jupiter transit to my first house, so it was time, right? But I was mind blown. The Leo King had read my chart, and then also I had one from Christopher Witecki. So between both of those, it just, this was what really made me realize there's so much more to the world. And at the time before, I had always been interested in personality profiling. So I had dabbled with Myers-Briggs a little bit, and to me that was just like, yes, I found a way that I could connect with people and communicate with people, because I was wanting to understand people, and I didn't realize that's because I'm a Gemini, right? Representative.
Yeah.
Wanting to like talk and connect. So, when I realized astrology could be that complex to the point where you can time events and just know stuff about one's life without, that just kind of tuned and aligned in gear. And as far as now doing this as a path for work, I didn't realize how much the universe was like pushing me. Well, I don't even say pushing me, but like setting up my path to where like I actually had to do this. And I say this because this path has made me realize when you're destined to do certain things, the only thing you can do is delay it, but you can't really stop the destiny from going. Which my North Node's in Aquarius, by the way, so I very much so. That's another reason why I very much so appreciate Aquarius representatives like yourself. And I personally, it's on my MC, so I personally feel like the universe is my boss. So it's like I'm just feeling the flow as a Gemini. And what really personally inspired me to get on this path is just like seeing how I can bring that light to people and, like magic, blow their minds and enlighten them to the truth of who they are. That's the best part about this. So yeah, I would say that's what inspired me. But just once again to reiterate, like it's so faded. Like it just made me appreciate and respect how we're all connected and how we all kind of like push each other to or influence each other to awaken and activate. So my question for you is, who is your favorite mythological being?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I'd have to say Persephone.
Oh, okay. Interesting. The one who got kidnapped by Hades.
Yes.
Where?
I find Persephone really fascinating because of her passage between the dark and the light, and that she's transiting through both worlds and understanding both worlds. And I really like that myth. I think it has so much complexity to it, and, and people can really. It's about Persephone is also about traveling to other realms,
Okay.
and it's Pluto themed, but then there's also Demeter's in there in that archetype as well, and it's about understanding. It's about rite of passage because she's leaving her mother and she's moving on into another phase of her life.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of people can relate to that because that myth has a lot to do about growing up and letting go of your family.
that too. I like how you said exploring other worlds. So through Pluto, it'd be through the realm of your unconscious then.
Yeah, and he's Pluto is related to death and Hades and the river Styx, and she's going into the dark underworld. And Persephone also relates to the rhythms of the universe because it explains the different seasons. That myth is related to the seasonal changes of winter and spring and summer. I love the symbolism involved in that too.
Yeah, that's very true.
And you really do feel the energy shift depending upon the times of year. You really do feel shifts happening. And you can relate that myth to tuning into that. So I really personally love that character from mythology.
That's what's up. I like how they got the asteroids too. Like you could use Demeter and the asteroid. I think they do have Persephone too, which is cool.
I mean, Chiron's pretty awesome too. I mean,
Yeah,
there's so many amazing mythological characters. It's hard to just pick one. It,
it's always cool to see certain people who literally like embody the archetype.
yeah, some people you can really see it in them.
Yeah, it's like you're seeing the human vessel of them. It's
Oh
amazing.
yeah, and archetypes have energy in them. And when people embody that archetype, it's like a living energy expression. It's really cool. So I guess it's my turn to ask you a question, right?
Yep.
Okay, so what branches of astrology are you most passionate about or really enjoy
Oh,
personally? Or different areas?
that's a really great question. That's a really, really great question. So it's interesting too, because I feel like I'm at that place now where like, you do the undergraduate education and now you choose a specialty. But and I've purposefully kept what I do at a completely basic level, just so that I can get so used to it that it'll help me expand. But I think my true passion is with compatibility. Like what I really do, I I'm working on like an extensive compatibility course and like skit theories just you could so that we can all understand like the relationship astrology and then also encourage others to come up with their own observation and research because that's really where I feel the magic truly happens. Everyone really wants to know about synastry aspects and the magic of composite energy. So I mean, totally not just yeah, I would say definitely synastry and just kind of researching deeply into how the energies interact because I've just learned so much on personal experience how it opens up it makes you aware of the energies people carry and how you could like someone but if your moon signs don't get along you just won't vibe on an internal level and it's fascinating.
It really is fascinating. It's cool to look at the event charts when people meet too.
Yes, that's true.
Oh yeah,
That
so it's so interesting.
yeah. I mean, other than relationship astrology, I would really want to focus my efforts a lot on case studies and just doing research and making books that or making material that will kind of show trends. So
Mm.
there's yeah, well, there's that. There's relationships, and then constructive or practical applications of astrology too. I really want to get, I'm passionate about that as well. Really finding out, it's something I'll shift more towards, like telling you what'll happen in a transit, but then also, experimenting with finding out what truly does happen, what you can do in a Venus transit or whatnot. And yeah, that'd be really awesome. Um, Thank you for asking that, by the way. It kind of like lit a fire.
So curious about that.
Helped inspire some good energy. And yeah, once again, compatibility is just so fun. It's so fun. It's like really eye-opening. What do you feel is the greatest discovery you've ever made using any craft or system? And it's cool if maybe like you're still building a case on whatnot, but what do you feel like the
What
best?
was the greatest discovery I ever made with my research?
Yeah, like what was a transit you saw, or what was something you came into and was like, wow, like
Ooh, this is kind of, well, it's hard
it
to
doesn't have to be the greatest
tell
either.
you about. Okay, so I was watching a crime TV show because I'm a dork and I like watching.
They're fun. They're fun.
And I was watching the special about the women of the Lost Mesa. So there was a guy down in New Mexico who was capturing women, and they were all in this one in the desert, like over 100 of them. And I thought, this is terrible. This is such a horrible thing that happened. And I thought to myself, like, I wonder if these women have Venus retrograde or they got some sort of transit, because I was noticing, I was looking at their photos, and they all have very similar energy to them, because I also do psychometry where I read energy off photos and I touch objects and get impressions from them. So I just kind of was getting these psychic impressions when I was watching the show, and it got my curiosity piked. So I sat down for about 3 hours and I found all their birth dates, and I wanted to see, I looked at about 100 charts, and I wanted to see, do these women all have a common thread? Why is he targeting this, these people that have so much in common? I was just curious about it, because I studied the psychology of people when I look at their charts. And what I discovered was that they, almost all of them, had Mars opposite Pluto, or they had Venus retrograde. And it was like an aha moment for me. And I'm like, wow.
Wow.
I mean, what are the odds? They're all born in different decades. I mean, what's the chances that a lot of them are born under the same Venus retrograde cycle, or they're all born under a Venus retrograde? And the transits just kept mirroring each other and repeating. And then I would look at the dates that they would go missing, and that transit would repeat itself.
Ooh.
And I'm like, wow, this is weird. And that's when I really started studying mirror transits and event charts. When certain things happen in a person's life, you want to see what's going on that day. And sometimes those transits will actually mimic what's going on in their natal chart. Or they might have a transit that's hitting that T-square or that opposition or that retrograde, and it's amplifying that transit. So I started really researching and digging into it, and I noticed these trends, and I kind of just had a real aha moment when I did a case study on all those women.
Interesting.
Kind of like, wow. And just, that was really interesting. Another thing that was interesting is Charlie Chaplin's natal chart and Eric Clapton. They both have the same exact sun moon sign. Their moons are on their ascendant, and their Venuses are both retrograde in the 7th house, opposite their moon, and their lives were almost completely parallel.
Ooh.
I mean, they both were abandoned by their mothers, raised by other relatives. They were, and just, they both were married a couple, just certain things. I wrote a whole article on it, but they just very eerie similarities. And they were born in different centuries, but their charts were so similar. They were both Aries with Scorpio moon, and their Scorpio moon was on their ascendant opposite Venus in the 7th house. And that Venus was in both their Venuses were T-squared and retrograde and opposite their moon. And I compared their lives, and they were both such influential artists that changed the course of history with what they contributed. And I just really looked at their patterns in their life. Both of them had a child that died at the same age. I mean, just the similarities were just eerie. And I'm like, wow, astrology can be kind of spooky sometimes.
Yeah.
I discovered this on accident.
I was researching right now, and just to reiterate or make sure, because I feel like there was a certain similarity too with Stephen Paddock and Hugh Hefner, and both of them. There we go. Yeah, both of that happened. Hugh Hefner died, I think, within the same week as Stefan, and they're both born April 9. And I
Yeah.
really thought that was interesting too.
And, Eric Clapton's son died under Venus retrograde, under Eric's Venus return.
Damn.
Yeah, I know. It's really spooky. Venus retrograde people, I mean, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
They have very interesting lives usually.
I'm going to take retrogrades that much more seriously now. Oh, yes.
So those were kind of two really interesting discoveries I found interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. That's one good thing I'm going to take from this conversation too. Just a more even more passion for case study and analysis. It's just gems there, and there's just so much free information. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
we can accomplish so much that was impossible back then because we can get so much information within seconds. So I'm grateful. There's a lot of work to be done.
okay. I think it's my turn to ask you a question now.
Yeah.
Let me think. I need to think of a good one. Make it count. um, how do you think Jupiter and Scorpio is going to affect everyone?
Oh, that's a really good question. So right before we did this talk, I saw a video of yet another person who got rushed to the hospital because of a potential overdose, and it was a not Oxycontin, it was this cough syrup. So
Oh,
yeah, and it's interesting because they're talking about being okay, but they have to deal with being an addict, and how the person making the video is talking about, if you care about these people, tell them to go to therapy. And I feel like Jupiter and Scorpio is kind of forcing all of us to, well, let me not say force. I think that's a horrible word. Jupiter and Scorpio is allowing us to embrace our insecurities. And of course, this has everything to do in the first few decades with just Jupiter expanding on everything we hide and feel like we have to keep secret. Because I think, in a certain sense, what blocks intimacy is the keeping of secrets and the lack of trust. And, this being such a messy energy, since,
yeah.
we all have trust issues. This makes so much sense as to why, if maybe Saturn was when this was implemented, Jupiter is, of course, exposing all this. But Jupiter in Scorpio is going to clear all of this psychic, I guess it's disrespectful to call it psychic junk, but it's going to really help like heal what they're trying to Chiron, all this deeply intense emotional energy, so that we can harness supernatural ability and power, and it can fill our cups with the purity of intent, so that when we're telepathically engaging with others or dealing with enhanced abilities, we're not dealing with our insecurities and our unconscious shadows that could quite literally get in the way of such activity that needs such purity of focus. And yeah, other than that, I think it's going to be great for sexual culture too. I feel like people will be more bold about taking their power back and embracing boundaries while still expressing their sexuality. I guess that might be more Sagittarius, but yeah, it'll be. I think it's one of those transits that'll hurt first before you really feel the rewarding aspects of it. And that's just still the tip of the iceberg. There's so much with Jupiter and Scorpio.
Oh, that's a great way that you just put it. Like, it's going to revolutionize the boundaries we have between people. on sexual levels, like it's going to change everything. I really do feel that to be true.
And then everything that's changed, Saturn and Capricorn will just implement and move forward.
I think people are going to take situations of sexual harassment much more seriously than they used to. It's not going to be swept under the rug as much as it used to.
True that.
It's going to change. It's going to really change everything, I think.
My last question to you is a favorite I always ask. What are your 3 favorite zodiac sign placements or just signs, and then 3 that give you the most challenge?
Ooh, oh, well, I have to say, oh, this is a tough question. So many different placements. I really like Venus and Cancer people because they're very loving and very affectionate and very caring people. And I like that water element in the sign of Venus. I think it's a very nice placement. I like that. One that I struggle with. I think sometimes for me personally, it's hard for me with Aries moons because I have a Pisces moon. And if you don't show a person with Aries moon that you mean business, they'll walk all over you. You have to earn their respect by showing them that you can be assertive. So that's something I've learned to deal with when relating to people who have moon in Aries is you have to gain their respect or they can walk all over you because they're the pioneer.
Interesting.
It's cardinal energy in their moon sign. So I've noticed that with how I've related to that placement. In terms of favorite signs, ooh, all the signs are awesome in their own ways. Tough question. I really like Scorpios. I love Geminis. They're fun to talk to. They're great. Get along really great with Capricorns. I really appreciate their discipline and their structure and how they just can delegate and get things done. I really admire that quality in them. I really admire Gemini because they can get away with things other people can't get away with.
It's true.
They can pull off and get away with stuff that I could never get away with. So I have mad respect for them. And they also seem to really have a gift with technology. They can get things to work that other people can't get to work. And Geminis are good problem solvers too. I admire that quality in them. And the verbal skills. And a lot of times, I'm not saying all Geminis have great verbal skills, because you have to look at their Mercury and their chart and whatnot. But many times, the Gemini and energy I've encountered, it's very playful. They're great conversationalists. They're really fun to talk with because their communication flows on a different level from other people. I enjoy talking with Geminis. In the past, I would have to say, in terms of struggles with a sign, I have to say Leos and Scorpio moon. Sometimes I go toe to toe with them because I have an Aquarius sun and my sun is opposite their Leo, and then that Scorpio moon is fixed, so they have a lot of fixed energy. So I've noticed that I can have a little bit of challenges with that. I have a brother who has that placement. And I think because we're both fixed signs, it's kind of like you just have to learn how to compromise. I think the biggest lesson I've had to learn with people with a fixed moon and fixed sun is you have to learn how somebody has to compromise.
That's so different.
But each other.
Neither one wants to compromise though, so it's interesting because the last peace talk we had was with the Leo Sun Scorpio moon.
Oh, okay. Oops. I was just using my brother as an example.
That's cool.
Yeah, but I've just learned, when you've got two people with really fixed elements in their charts, you just have to learn how to compromise and understand that sometimes what you fight over is that you actually might be that you have some similar tendencies in your personality, or you might have to look at if they're activating your shadow side of your psyche and see if you're just projecting what you don't like about yourself onto them. And I think astrology is a great tool for really learning about our shadow side and understanding how we project onto people.
Amen. I totally agree.
Astrology is a great tool for better understanding ourselves.
Oh yes, 100%. I think that's the one thing that humbled me so much. Like it it made me realize I don't know anything. Like everything that I kind of gained knowledge about was through astrology, and it taught me that the greater your knowledge of life, the greater your knowledge of astrology, because you could just find ways to apply it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't realize how it was, the stars were able to teach me themes about life just through knowing certain trines, and then you can break learn about it's fascinating. It's truly
It
fascinating.
really is. I kind of feel like you really don't understand a transit fully until it happens to you and you live it. Because then once you live that transit and then someone comes to you for reading, you're like, how am I going to get through Saturn squaring my moon? Well, I'm going to say, and I can tell them, well, I've been through that and here's some advice on how to get through that.
No, true that.
Yeah, so I really do feel like life experience really teaches, helps our astrology knowledge too.
Oh, loads. Well, the I hate to cut this short. This is really dope. And the last question I have for you is, do you have any words of encouragement for anybody walking the spiritual path who may just be starting out? And how can we have the link below to your services, but
Okay.
what kind of readings do you offer for people, and how could they personally reach you?
I offer natal chart readings. I also do synastry readings for couples or people that want to better understand another person. Like, say you're having an issue with a family member or a business partner or a loved one. I do readings to help people understand their synastry and compatibility with people. I do synastry, natal chart readings. I do ancestral readings, which is like looking at your family's charts and your charts and looking at your family of origin issues and how it
Oh,
relates to your chart. I do that as well. Um, and I do also offer psychometry readings, which is reading photos and objects. And you can reach me through the Peace Dealer's website. My profile is on there.
much appreciated again, Leah. And just to reiterate, what is the word of advice you have for people who may be starting this path?
Word of advice, just read, just read books and just take it one day at a time. And the best way to really learn more about astrology, if that's what you're interested in, is to really just practice reading other people's charts because the more charts you look at, the more you're going to learn. And then you can keep comparing.
Amen. That's
It's practice and sticking through with it and just putting those years in. You're going to keep learning as time goes on.
the never-ending discovery of truth and knowledge. I totally agree.
You never stop learning.
Never. Even when you teach, teaching is learning. That's what I love.
Absolutely.
Totally great. So they definitely loved you in the live chat. Thank you guys once again for joining in. We'll probably be back and do another video for like a Q&A session. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank
And
you.
thank you once again, Leah, for joining and your amazing quantum content. So
Thank you for having me.
no problemo. Y'all stay tuned for our next episode or next video. And until next time, peace.